TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lays out 4 points that were thoroughly discussed with U.S. President Donald Trump during his visit to Washington. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East Steve Witkoff warns Iran that he would not travel to Oman unless it agrees to meet directly. French President Emanuel Macron warns that pursuing President Donald Trump's proposal for post-war Gaza would threaten the security of Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu returned back to Israel early this morning after meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump for a second time at the White House since the American leader assumed office less than 3 months ago.
I
have just finished my second visit to the U.S. in 2 months, a very warm visit with my friend President Donald Trump. You could be impressed from the great closeness and friendship between us, which was expressed in the issues we discussed. First of all, Iran. We agree that Iran will not have nuclear weapons. This can be done by agreement, but only if this agreement is Libyan style. They go in, blow up the installations, dismantle all of the equipment, under American supervision and carried out by America. This would be good. The second possibility, that will not be, is that they drag out the talks and then there is the military option. Everyone understands this. We spoke about this at length. The second issue that we discussed was Gaza. We are determined to eliminate Hamas and, at the same time, we are determined to return all of our hostages. The president looked at me and told the journalists who were present, this man is working constantly to free the hostages. I hope that this shatters the lie that is being circulated to the effect that I am not working for them, that I don't care. I do care, and I am doing it, and we will be successful. We also discussed President Trump's vision, because we are currently in contact with countries that are talking about the possibility of taking in many Gazans. This is important because in the end, this is what needs to happen. The third issue, Turkey. Turkey wants to establish military bases in Syria, and this endangers Israel. We oppose this and are working against it. I told President Trump, who is my friend, and also a friend of Erdogan, if we are in need of your help, we will discuss it with you. The fourth and last issue, the tariffs. President Trump has asked countries to reduce their trade deficits with the U.S. to zero. I told him, this is not so difficult for us. We will do it. This is the little that we can do for the U.S. and its president, who does so much for us. This was a very good visit, a very warm visit. There were additional things that you will hear about later.
White House Press Secretary Catherine Leavitt, in a near-daily press briefing, seized the opportunity to highlight that the Trump administration views Israel's proactive approach with regard to the tariffs imposed against it as a model for the rest of the world to emulate.
The Prime Minister pledged to immediately eliminate America's trade deficit with Israel and remove their trade barriers. Israel's proactive approach should serve as a model for the rest of the world.
The White House press secretary further noted in response to a question about looming negotiations between the United States and Iran on the latter's nuclear program that the reason for the Islamic Republic's capitulation with regard to diplomacy relates to President Trump's unequivocal position, either negotiate or face grave military consequences.
Well, first of all, when it comes to Saturday, I won't get ahead of the president. He has said there will be direct talks with Iran on Saturday. I won't further any details from this podium for obvious reasons, security reasons. It will, provide an update as we always have. However, when it comes to Iran, the president has reimposed crippling sanctions on the Iranian regime, and he's made it very clear to Iran they have a choice to make. You can strike a deal with the president, you can negotiate, or there will be hell to pay. And as the president said yesterday, if they don't choose to move forward with diplomacy and a deal, which is the direction we do see them headed in, there will be grave consequences to pay.
Meanwhile, in Tehran, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi insisted in response to a question by the Ayatollah regime's run media that the Islamic Republic of Iran rejects any direct negotiations with the United States, doubling down on claims that talks on its nuclear program will be held indirectly.
مذاکرات همونطوری که اعلام شد و من هم
As announced, and as I also posted last night on X, the negotiations will be held on Saturday in Oman. The negotiations will be indirect. We will not accept any other method for negotiation. Negotiations where they try to impose their will on us through pressure and threats are not truly negotiations. In reality, it is dictation of their will, and we absolutely do not believe in this approach.
It is important to know that President Trump's Mideast envoy, Steve Witkoff, who is set to lead the American delegation in talks, conveyed a message to the Iranians via Omani channels that unless the Islamic Republic of Iran agrees to negotiate directly, the United States will not engage with it diplomatically. Moreover, according to the Washington Post, Witkoff does not intend to travel to Oman unless the Iranians accept direct negotiations. However, according to the Islamic Republic's government spokeswoman, the Ayatollah regime remains adamant at indirect negotiations.
We are pursuing indirect negotiations. According to the announcement by Mr. Iraqi, who, as the highest authority in charge and who naturally has the final say, the high-level indirect talks will begin in Oman. The content of the negotiations can generally be discussed after the talks, but what the Islamic Republic has in mind is that we will defend the legitimate rights of the Iranian nation in these negotiations.
Meanwhile, in Tehran, several tens of thousands of Ayatollah regime supporters gathered in the Iranian capital to express their solidarity with Tehran's regional tentacles, including the Islamist Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and Hashd al-Shaabi in Iraq, burning Israeli and American flags, holding signs calling for the destruction of both America and Israel, and chanting, "Death to America and death to Israel."
Death, death to America. Death, death to Israel.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, fearing a plausible nearing end to its close ally, namely the Ayatollah regime of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Russia's foreign ministry claimed that the use of military force against Iran's nuclear infrastructure is viewed by Russia as illegal and unacceptable.
I would like to reiterate that the use of military force by Iran's adversaries to achieve their goals is illegal and unacceptable. In our view, the signals we observed in recent days about the prospects for moving towards a diplomatic settlement deserve attention and should be taken into account.
The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman went on to claim that the West was disingenuous in its intentions vis-à-vis Iran due to the aggressive military posture in the Middle East, stopping short, of course, of articulating the facts to include the Islamic Republic's seeming rush towards consolidating its capacity to turn into a nuclear power alongside the Ayatollah regime's global belligerence.
In general, the way our Western colleagues have behaved so far makes it doubtful that they have a genuine desire to resolve the tangle of these issues. We hope that a reasonable approach will prevail and that they will be able to switch to a constructive, thoughtful conversation about possible parameters for negotiating solutions that would avoid a crisis.
Turning to the Egyptian capital of Cairo, where French President Emanuel Macron concluded a trip to Egypt, prior to which he held lengthy meetings with both visiting Jordanian King Abdullah II and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
French President Emmanuel Macron and I discussed in depth the developments on the regional and international scene, most notably the tragic situation in the Gaza Strip, where we stressed the need to return to an immediate ceasefire, allow the urgent entry of humanitarian aid, and release the hostages. We also agreed to reject any calls to displace Palestinians from their land. I reviewed with President Macron the Arab plan for the recovery and reconstruction of the Gaza Strip.
While condemning Israel's resumption of its military pressure on the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the French leader emphasized the need for an immediate return to a ceasefire.
We condemn the resumption of Israeli strikes in Gaza, which constitutes a dramatic setback for the civilian population, the hostages, their families, and the entire region. We call for an immediate return to the ceasefire and the release of all hostages still held by Hamas in Gaza. Negotiations must resume without delay and in a constructive manner, and in this regard, I would like to commend Egypt's tireless efforts.
President Macron went on to relay a warning to both Jerusalem and Washington, claiming that the displacement of Palestinians from either Gaza or the so-called West Bank would threaten Israel's security.
France also agrees with Egypt on one major point, and I want to reiterate it here forcefully. We firmly oppose the displacement of populations and any annexation of Gaza or the West Bank. This would be a violation of international law and a serious threat to the security of the entire region, including that of Israel.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to highlight that TV7 Israel is a donation-based ministry with all of our programs made possible by the generosity of our viewers. Therefore, if you're blessed by the content of our programs, please consider becoming a TV7 Israel supporter. You can donate via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Jonathan Essen wishing you an Erev Mevorach. God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.